The cameras caught every second as Joe Biden lost his cool, his voice booming across the Kennedy Center, demanding Barack Obama stop speaking. But Obama's response, so calm, so cutting, turned the room upside down and left America speechless. A moment that would echo far beyond that night in 2025. The Kennedy Center's grand ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers, its velvet-draped walls and polished marble floors reflecting the glow of a night meant to symbolize unity. Every seat was filled, senators, governors, diplomats, tech moguls, and journalists packed in tight, their eyes darting between two men who had once led the nation, former Presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden, sharing a stage for the first time since both left office. The air was thick with expectation. You could feel it in the hushed whispers, the way guests leaned forward in their chairs, the faint clink of glasses pausing as conversations died. Washington was no stranger to political theater, but this felt different, heavier, like the prelude to a storm no one could predict. Obama, in a sharp navy suit, his familiar composure radiating calm authority, was set to deliver a keynote speech after a round of toasts, while Biden at the head table seemed restless, his hands fidgeting, his jaw tight, aides at his side exchanging nervous glances as if they sensed trouble brewing. The cameras never left them, zooming in on every micro-expression, every shift in posture. The room knew that when two former presidents shared a stage, history was watching, but no one could have anticipated the clash that would unfold. A confrontation that would redefine leadership for millions and spark a media firestorm unlike anything seen in years. This was no ordinary night. It was the beginning of a moment that would change how America saw its leaders. The gala had been planned for months, announced in early 2025 as a bipartisan effort to celebrate America's resilience after years of division. Invitations went out to leaders from both parties, promising a night of shared purpose, a chance to show the country could move forward together. But the irony hung heavy. A veteran reporter in the hallway muttered to a colleague, "Calling this unity is like inviting lightning and thunder to dinner and expecting a quiet meal." The guest list was a who's who of power: congressional leaders, foreign ambassadors, tech CEOs, even a few celebrities, all gathered under the Kennedy Center's glittering roof. The program promised speeches on collaboration, democracy, and hope. But everyone in that room knew the real draw was Obama and Biden, two men whose legacies were intertwined yet strained. Their time in office marked by alliance but also quiet tensions that had simmered since Biden's presidency ended. The dinner began smoothly. Polite chatter filled the air. Talk of trade deals, climate initiatives, even the latest Mars rover landing. Cameras panned across the tables, catching forced smiles, clinking wine glasses, a senator joking about the Nationals playoff chances, but beneath the surface, the room was on edge. Journalists typed furiously on their laptops, their eyes flicking between Obama and Biden, waiting for the moment that would break the internet. That moment came faster than anyone expected. When Obama rose to speak, the atmosphere shifted. Some clapped warmly, others hesitated, their gazes darting toward Biden, who sat rigid, his fingers drumming the table, his face already showing signs of irritation. Obama began, his voice steady, deliberate, carrying that trademark cadence that could quiet a room. He spoke of America's strength, the need to heal divides, to put nation above ego. "We are not measured by our titles," Obama said, his eyes sweeping the crowd, "but by our ability to listen, to bridge what pulls us apart, to choose hope over hostility." A few heads nodded. A congresswoman from Virginia whispered to her aide, "He's aiming this right at him." Biden's face tightened. His aides leaned in, whispering, trying to keep him calm. But the cameras caught it all, the tension building like a coil ready to snap. And then it did. Biden stood abruptly, his chair screeching against the marble floor. "Enough, Barack, just enough." His voice boomed, raw and unfiltered. "You don't get to come here and preach to me. Not tonight." Gasps rippled through the room. A diplomat from France dropped her glass, A senator from Michigan froze mid-sip, whispering, "Did he just do that?" Obama stood still, his hands resting lightly on the podium, his expression unshaken. The silence stretched, heavy, electric. Every eye locked on him, waiting for what would come next. The Kennedy Center, a place of art and history, was now a stage for a clash no one could ignore. But the real story was just beginning, because Obama's response would turn this moment into something unforgettable. The room was alive with shock. Journalists scrambled to capture every detail, their pens racing across notepads. Guests whispered furiously, avoiding eye contact, the rawness of Biden's outburst. A former president shouting at another to stop talking was the kind of moment that seared itself into memory. Obama, however, didn't flinch. His posture relaxed, his face calm, for a man who had faced global crises, hostile crowds, and 8 years of relentless scrutiny. This was just another test, magnified by the stage and the man across from him. He leaned closer to the microphone, his tone even, almost gentle. "Joe, with all due respect, this stage isn't yours alone. It belongs to the American people, and they deserve to hear a conversation, not a shouting match." The silence that followed was crushing. Every ear strained to hear his next words. A cameraman in the back lowered his equipment for a split second. Stunned by the precision of the reply, Obama continued, "I was invited here to talk about unity, about what holds this country together. And if that word makes you this uncomfortable, maybe that's the story we should all be talking about tonight." Murmurs erupted. A congressman from Arizona whispered, "To his neighbor, that's going viral right now." Biden bristled, his hands clenched. He gestured toward an aide, signaling for the microphone to be cut. "You're grandstanding, Barack. You always did." His voice sharp but unsteady. The staff hesitated. No one wanted to be the one to silence a former president on live television. Obama glanced at the crowd. Then back at Biden. "You can tell me to stop, Joe," he said, his voice firm but calm. "But you can't stop the truth from being heard." The room erupted. Applause thundered. Some guests stood, others clapped cautiously, the sound echoing off the velvet walls. Biden's face reddened. He pointed at the crowd. "You see this, you see what he's doing. He's trying to make me look weak." But the applause only grew louder, drowning out his words. Obama raised a hand slightly, asking for calm, his composure amplifying the weight of his message. "This isn't about you or me, Joe. It's about the families watching tonight. The people who are tired of leaders treating politics like a personal grudge, who want hope, not hostility." Biden tried to interrupt. "You think you're above it all, don't you? Always so perfect." But Obama didn't blink. "I'm here because people still believe in decency, Joe, and decency doesn't need to shout. It speaks." The crowd roared again, the energy shifting. Guests who had stayed neutral now leaned forward, captivated. Biden paced behind his table, muttering to aides. The cameras caught every moment. The contrast stark, one man steady, the other unraveling. And the nation watching knew this was no ordinary night, but what came next would make it legendary. The applause hadn't fully faded when Biden stepped forward, gripping the edge of his table, his voice cracking with frustration. "You don't get it. Barack, you had your time 8 years, and now you're back acting like you've got all the answers. This is my night, not yours." The words hit hard, raw, and personal. A senator from Ohio whispered to his aide, "This is getting out of hand." A journalist from the Washington Post scribbled so fast her pen nearly tore the paper. Obama stood calm, letting Biden's words hang in the air, his silence louder than any retort. Then he spoke, his tone measured. "Joe, the American people don't care about your night or mine. They care about their own, about whether their leaders can sit in the same room and talk without tearing each other apart." The crowd stirred, some nodding, others frozen. Biden jabbed a finger toward him. "You're lecturing me in front of everyone. You're trying to make me look small." Obama tilted his head slightly, not in mockery, but in calm defiance. "I'm not here to make anyone look small, Joe. I'm here because people invited me to talk about what holds this country together. If that feels like a lecture, Maybe it's because the truth cuts deeper than you want. Gasps swept the room, followed by a swell of applause, louder than before. A group of college students in the back stood, their phones out, recording every second. Biden shouted over the noise, "This is a setup, you planned this, you knew what you were doing." But his voice cracked, losing its edge. The Secret Service agents near the doors exchanged glances but didn't move. Removing a former president on live television was a line they wouldn't cross. Obama leaned into the microphone. Leadership isn't about silencing the room, Joe, it's about lifting it up. And right now, the American people are watching to see who understands that. The applause surged again, guests pounding the tables. The sound so loud it seemed to shake the chandeliers. Biden's aides scrambled, whispering frantically, but the room was no longer his. Obama's words had taken it. Not with anger, but with a quiet authority that cut deeper than any shout. Social media was already exploding. Hashtags forming. Hashtag Obama speaks. Hashtag Biden outburst trending within minutes. A clip posted by a student hit 2 million views before the speech even ended. But inside the Kennedy Center, the tension was still climbing. And Obama's next words would push this moment into something no one could have predicted. The room was electric. Every eye locked on Obama. Every breath held as the tension between the two former presidents reached a fever pitch. Biden stood, his face flushed, his hands trembling slightly as he pointed at Obama. "You think you're the only one who cares about this country, Barack? You think I didn't fight for it too? I gave everything for it." His voice was loud but strained. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A diplomat from Germany whispered to her colleague, "This is unprecedented." Obama didn't react, his hands still resting lightly on the podium, his expression unshaken. He let Biden's words settle, then spoke, his voice low but piercing. "Joe, nobody doubts you fought for this country. But fighting for it doesn't mean shouting down the people who share it with you. It means listening, even when it's hard, even when it hurts your pride." The silence that followed was heavy. A journalist in the back muttered, "That's a soundbite." For the ages, Obama continued, "The presidency isn't a prize, it's a burden, one I carried, one you carried. And the way we carry it shows the world who we are." Biden bristled, "You're preaching again. Always preaching, always acting like you're above it all." But Obama didn't take the bait. "I'm not preaching, Joe. I'm reminding you, and everyone here, that leadership isn't about who's loudest. It's about who's steady when the storm comes." The crowd erupted again, applause rolling like a wave. Some guests standing, others whispering excitedly. Biden tried to speak. "You don't get to tell me what leadership is. I was president too. I know what it takes." But his words were swallowed by the applause. Obama waited, his composure unbroken, then leaned closer to the microphone. "The American people don't need us to fight over who was president. They need us to show them what leadership looks like. When it's not about ego, when it's about them." The room was alive, the energy palpable. Even Biden's own aides looked torn, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment play out. Obama's words weren't just for Biden. They were for the millions watching at home. And the cameras knew it, zooming in on his calm face, capturing the weight of every syllable. Biden muttered something inaudible, his face tight, but the crowd was with Obama now, chanting softly, "Let him speak, let him speak." The words growing louder, more unified. Biden froze, his face a mix of anger and disbelief, his own events slipping from his grasp, and what came next would transform this night into a defining moment in American history. Stay tuned for it. The Kennedy Center was a powder keg. Joe Biden's voice thundered as he demanded Barack Obama leave the stage. But Obama's next words didn't just silence the room. They rewrote the night and sent shockwaves across America. A moment in 2025 that would burn itself into history. The grand ballroom, its chandeliers casting a golden glow, its velvet walls absorbing the tension, was no longer just a venue for a bipartisan gala. It had become a battlefield. Every seat filled with senators, governors, diplomats, and journalists. Their eyes locked on two former presidents, Obama and Biden, locked in a clash that felt less like politics and more like a reckoning. The air was heavy. You could see it in the way guests gripped their glasses, their whispers fading into stunned silence. The cameras caught every angle, zooming in on Biden's flushed face, his hands trembling with frustration, and Obama's unshakable calm, his hands resting lightly on the podium. The contrast was undeniable, one man unraveling, the other steady as stone. The crowd had just erupted into chants of "Let him speak, let him speak," their voices rising in a wave that drowned out Biden's protests. The former president stood frozen, his own event slipping from his grasp, aides at his side whispering frantically, trying to regain control. But the room was Obama's now, not through force, but through a quiet authority that cut deeper than any shout. Social media was already ablaze, clips of Biden's outburst and Obama's measured response, racking up millions of views. But inside the Kennedy Center, the real drama was still unfolding. And what happened next would turn this night into a legend that America would never forget. The room was still vibrating from the crowd's chant, "Let him speak, let him speak," a spontaneous surge that had started with a few voices and grown into a roar, senators, students, even diplomats joining in, their words echoing off the marble floors. Biden stood at his table, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. He jabbed a finger toward the crowd. "You're all against me. You're letting him steal this night." His voice cracked, raw with frustration. The camera zoomed in, catching the sweat on his brow, the way his aides hovered, unsure whether to pull him back or let him keep going. Obama stood at the podium, his expression calm, his posture relaxed. He didn't gesture, didn't shout for silence. He simply waited, letting the room find its voice. The silence that followed the chant was deafening, every eye locked on him. Waiting for his next move, he leaned closer to the microphone, his voice low but piercing. "Joe, this isn't about stealing anything. It's about giving the American people what they deserve, a conversation about unity. Not a fight about who owns the stage," the crowd murmured. A senator from California whispered to her colleague, "That's going to be quoted for years." Obama continued, "We're standing in a place that celebrates art, culture, history, but tonight, we're here to celebrate something bigger. The idea that this country can rise above division, that leaders can disagree without tearing each other down." Biden interrupted, his voice sharp. "You're twisting this, Barack. You're making it about you, always about you." Obama didn't flinch, his eyes steady. "I'm making it about the people. Joe, the families watching at home, the ones who are tired of leaders who shout instead of listen, who divide instead of build." The room erupted again. Applause thundering, some guests standing, others pounding the tables, the sound so loud it seemed to shake the chandeliers. Biden's aides scrambled, one whispering to another, "We're losing the room. We're losing it." Biden shouted over the noise, "You think you're perfect, Barack. You think you never made mistakes." But his words were swallowed by the applause. Obama waited, his composure unbroken, then spoke again. "Nobody's perfect. Joe, not me, not you. But leadership isn't about perfection. It's about accountability, about owning your mistakes and lifting others up, not pushing them down." The crowd roared louder, the energy shifting. Guests who had been neutral now leaned forward, captivated. The cameras caught every second. The contrast stark, one man shouting, the other speaking. And the nation watching knew this was no ordinary night. But the real turning point was still to come. The applause was still ringing when Biden stepped forward, his hands gripping the table so tightly his knuckles whitened. "You don't get to lecture me, Barack. I was president too. I carried that burden. I fought for this country." His voice was loud but unsteady. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A diplomat from Brazil whispered to her aide, "This is getting personal." Obama stood calm, letting Biden's words hang in the air, his silence louder than any retort. Then he spoke, his tone measured. "Joe, nobody's questioning your fight, but fighting for the country doesn't mean fighting everyone in it. It means listening, even when it stings, even when it challenges your pride. The silence that followed was heavy. A journalist from the New York Times scribbled furiously, muttering, "That's a headline right there." Obama continued, "The presidency is a weight, one we both know well. But it's not about who carried it longest or loudest. It's about what you leave behind, whether you leave a nation stronger or more divided." Biden bristled. "You left plenty of messes, Barack. Don't act like you're above it all." Obama tilted his head slightly, not in mockery, but in calm defiance. "I left messes, Joe. I've owned them. But leadership isn't about pointing fingers at the past. It's about building a future, and right now, the American people are watching to see who's building and who's breaking." Gasps swept the room, followed by a swell of applause. Louder than before, a group of college students in the back stood, their phones out, recording every word. Biden shouted, "This is my event, my night. You're hijacking it," his voice cracking with desperation, but the crowd wasn't listening. The Secret Service agents near the doors stood motionless, their faces unreadable. Removing a former president on live television was unthinkable. Obama leaned into the microphone. "Leadership isn't about owning the room, Joe. It's about serving it. And right now, the people want to hear what unites us, not what tears us apart." The applause surged again, guests pounding the tables. A senator from Colorado whispered to his aide, "He's turning this into a movement." Biden's face darkened. He pointed at the crowd. "You see what he's doing? He's playing you all." But the room was no longer his. Obama's words had seized it, not with anger, but with a quiet authority that cut deeper than any shout. Social media was exploding. #decency is strength trending globally. A clip of Obama's response hitting 5 million views in minutes. But inside the Kennedy Center, the tension was still climbing. And what came next would push this moment into uncharted territory. The room was a live wire, every eye locked on Obama, every breath held as the clash between the two former presidents reached a new peak. Biden paced behind his table, his voice rising. "You think you're the only one who cares about unity. Barack, you think I didn't try. I gave everything for this country." His words were raw, personal. The crowd stirred, some guests uncomfortable, others captivated. A diplomat from Canada whispered to her colleague, "This is like watching a family fight." Obama stood steady, his hand still on the podium, his expression unshaken. He let Biden's words settle, then spoke, his voice low but cutting. "Joe, trying isn't enough. Leading means showing up for the hard moments, the ones where you don't get to shout your way out, where you have to listen, even when it hurts." The silence was electric. A journalist from the Washington Post muttered, "That's going to be everywhere tomorrow." Obama continued, "We're here tonight because people believe this country can do better, can be better. They invited us to talk about unity, not to fight over who gets the spotlight." Biden interrupted, "You're making this about you, Barack. You always do, always." The star, Obama didn't blink. "I'm making this about the people, Joe, the ones watching at home, the ones who want leaders who don't treat every disagreement like a personal attack." The crowd erupted again, applause rolling like thunder, some standing, others shouting encouragement. Biden tried to cut in. "You don't get to tell me how to lead. I was in that office. I know what it takes." But his voice was drowned out. Obama waited, then leaned closer to the microphone. "The American people don't need us to argue over who led better. They need us to show them what leadership looks like when it's about service, not ego." The room roared, the energy palpable, even. Biden's aides looked torn, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment unfold. A senator from Nevada whispered to his neighbor, "He's not just winning the room, he's winning the country." Biden muttered, "This is a setup, all of it. A total setup." But the crowd wasn't listening. Chants of "let him speak" started again. Growing louder, more unified, Biden froze, his face twitching with frustration, his own event slipping further from his control. And what Obama said next would turn this clash into something no one could have predicted. The applause was deafening, the Kennedy Center shaking with the weight of the moment. Biden stood, his face flushed, his hands trembling as he pointed at Obama. "You're not the president anymore, Barack. You don't get to come here and act like you're still in charge." His voice was loud but cracking. The crowd shifted, some guests whispering nervously, others leaning forward, captivated. A diplomat from Japan said softly to her aide, "This is history happening." Obama didn't react, his composure unbroken. He let Biden's words hang, then spoke, his voice steady. "Joe, the presidency isn't a crown, it's a responsibility, and sometimes that responsibility means hearing things you don't want to hear. Things that challenge you, things that make you uncomfortable." The silence was heavy. A journalist in the back scribbled, "That's a legacy-defining line." Obama continued, "I'm not here to act like I'm in charge. I'm here because the people who invited me believe in a country that can disagree without falling apart. If that makes you feel threatened, maybe the question isn't why I'm speaking. It's why you're shouting." Gasps rippled through the room, followed by applause so loud it seemed to shake the walls. Biden shouted, "You're disrespecting me. Disrespecting the office, in front of the world." But his words were lost in the noise. Obama stood calm, his eyes locked on Biden. "I'm not disrespecting anyone, Joe. I'm reminding you that the office belongs to the people, not to you, not to me, and they deserve better than this." The crowd roared again, some guests standing, others chanting, "Let him speak, let him speak." The chant growing into a wave that drowned out Biden's protests. A congresswoman from Texas whispered, "He's turning this into a sermon." Biden's aides scrambled, one muttering to another, "We can't let this keep going." But the Secret Service stood still, their faces unreadable, unwilling to touch the powder keg of removing a former president. Obama leaned into the microphone. "Leadership isn't about silencing critics, Joe. It's about facing them, about showing the world that America is bigger than one man's pride." The applause surged, guests pounding the tables, the energy electric. Biden tried to speak. "You're playing to the cameras, Barack. You always were." But the room was Obama's now, his words carrying a weight that no shout could match. Social media was a firestorm, clips spreading like wildfire. Hashtag Obama Speaks trending globally, a student's video hitting 10 million views. But inside the Kennedy Center, the tension was still rising, and Obama's next move would push this moment into a realm no one could have imagined. The room was a cauldron of energy. Every eye on Obama, every breath held as the clash reached its peak. The bit and paste, his voice rising, "You think you're the only one who knows leadership. Barack, you think I didn't face storms. I carried this country through a pandemic, through division, through chaos." His words were raw, almost pleading. The crowd stirred, some sympathetic, others uneasy. A senator from Ohio whispered to his aide, "He's digging himself deeper." Obama stood steady, letting Biden's words settle, then spoke, his voice calm but cutting. "Joe, nobody's saying you didn't face storms, but leadership isn't just surviving them, it's guiding others through them. It's choosing calm over chaos, unity over anger." The silence was electric. A journalist from the Boston Globe muttered, "That's going to be on every front page." Obama continued, "We're here tonight because people believe in that kind of leadership. The kind that doesn't shout down disagreement, but invites it. The kind that doesn't tear down, but builds up." Biden interrupted, "You're preaching again, Barack. Always preaching. Always acting like you've got the moral high ground." Obama didn't blink. "I'm not preaching, Joe. I'm speaking to the people watching, the ones who want leaders who don't treat every moment like a fight, who don't mistake volume for strength." The crowd erupted, applause thundering, some standing, others shouting encouragement. Biden tried to cut in, "You don't get to tell me what strength is. I know strength, I lived it." But his voice was drowned out. Obama waited, then leaned closer to the microphone. "Strength isn't measured by how loud you shout, Joe. It's measured by how steady you stand when the room is against you." The applause was deafening, guests leaping to their feet. The chant of "Let him speak" growing louder, more unified. Biden froze, his face a mix of anger and desperation. His own event now a stage for Obama's message. Aides whispered frantically. One saying, "We're losing the narrative, we're losing it all." But the cameras caught everything. The contrast undeniable, one man shouting, the other speaking. The nation watching knew this was more than a clash, it was a lesson, and what Obama said next would make this night unforgettable. But you'll have to wait for part 3 to see how his final words turned the Kennedy Center into a classroom for America and sparked a movement that would echo for years. The Kennedy Center was a crucible. Joe Biden's shouts had lost their power. But Barack Obama's final words didn't just win the room. They reshaped how America saw leadership, a moment in 2025 that became a story for the ages. The grand ballroom, its chandeliers glowing, its velvet walls soaking up the tension, was no longer just a stage, it was a courtroom. Every guest a witness to a clash between two former presidents. Obama standing calm at the podium, Biden pacing, his face flushed with frustration. The crowd's chant of "Let him speak still ringing. A wave of voices that had drowned out Biden's protests. The cameras caught every second, zooming in on Obama's steady gaze, Biden's trembling hands, the contrast so stark it felt like a painting, one man composed, the other unraveling. The room was electric, senators, diplomats, journalists, students, all leaning forward, their breaths held, waiting for Obama's next move. Social media was a wildfire. Clips of the confrontation hitting 15 million views. Hashtags like #DecencyIsStrength trending globally, but inside the Kennedy Center, the real story was reaching its peak. Obama's words were about to turn this night into a lesson that would echo far beyond those walls. A lesson about what leadership means when the stakes are highest. The applause was still thundering when Biden lunged forward, his voice cracking as he pointed at Obama. "You're not the president anymore, Barack. You don't get to act like you're still running this country." His words were raw, desperate. The crowd stirred. Some uneasy, others captivated. A senator from Georgia whispered to his aide, "He's losing it completely." Obama stood still, his hands resting lightly on the podium, his expression unshaken. He let Biden's words hang, then leaned into the microphone, his voice calm but piercing. "Joe, the presidency isn't a title you keep. It's a responsibility you carry, and right now, the American people are watching to see who carries it with dignity." The silence was deafening. A journalist from the Washington Post muttered, "That's going to be on every front page." Obama continued, "This night isn't about you or me. It's about the people, the ones who invited us here to talk about unity, not to shout each other down." Biden interrupted, "You're grandstanding, Barack. You're playing to the cameras, always the showman." Obama didn't blink. "I'm speaking to the people, Joe. The ones who are tired of leaders who treat every disagreement like a personal attack, who mistake anger for strength." The crowd erupted, applause shaking the room. Guests standing, some pounding the tables. Biden shouted, "You think you're above it all, don't you? Always so perfect." But his voice was drowned out. Obama waited, his composure unbroken, then spoke, "Nobody's perfect, Joe. Not me, not you. But leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being steady, about choosing decency over division. Even when it's hard." The applause surged. Again, louder than before, a group of students chanted, "Let him speak, let him speak," the words echoing like a heartbeat. Biden froze, his face twitching with anger, his aides whispering frantically. One saying, "We've lost the night, we've lost it." But the cameras caught everything, the contrast undeniable, one man shouting, the other speaking, and the nation watching knew this was a moment that would define an era. But Obama's final words were about to make it unforgettable. The room was a furnace of energy. Every eye locked on Obama, every breath held as the clash reached its climax. Biden stood, his hands trembling, his voice rising. "You think you're the only one who knows what this country needs. Barack, I fought for it, I bled for it." His words were raw, almost pleading. The crowd shifted, some sympathetic, others uneasy. A diplomat from Sweden whispered to her colleague, "This is history in the making." Obama stood steady, letting Biden's words settle, then spoke, his voice low but cutting. Joe, nobody doubts your fight. But leadership isn't just about fighting, it's about lifting. It's about showing the world that America can rise above anger, above ego, above the noise. The silence was electric. A journalist from the New York Times scribbled, "That's a legacy line." Obama continued, "We're here tonight because people believe in that America, the one that doesn't tear itself apart, the one that chooses dialogue over division." Biden tried to cut in, "You're preaching again." Barack, always preaching, but Obama didn't flinch. "I'm not preaching, Joe. I'm reminding you, and everyone watching, that leadership is measured by what you build, not what you break." The crowd roared, applause thundering, guests leaping to their feet. Biden shouted, "This is my event, you don't get to take it." But his words were lost. Obama leaned into the microphone, his voice calm but unyielding. "Joe, you can tell me to leave this stage, but you can't silence the truth. And the truth is, history will remember who stood for unity and who tried to shout it down." The room exploded. By morning, the clash was the only story that mattered. Biden's team huddled in crisis mode, advisors debating how to recover. Biden took to social media, typing, "Obama disrespected the moment. Media won't tell the truth." But the posts were drowned out by replays of Obama's calm voice. Polls showed independents shifting, 68% saying Obama looked more presidential, even though neither held office, in a Denver coffee shop. A retiree said, "I voted for Biden, but last night, Obama showed what leadership means." In a Miami classroom, a teacher played the clip, her students asking, "Why didn't Obama yell back?" She replied, "Because he didn't need to." Strength is quiet sometimes. The moment seeped into daily life. Parents quoted it to kids during arguments. Pastors wove it into sermons. A small-town librarian in Iowa put Obama's quote on a sign. "Decency is strength." In London, a BBC anchor called it a defining moment in American politics. In Tokyo, a news outlet marveled at Obama's poise. The clip played in gyms, airports, barbershops. It wasn't just news. It was a story people needed. A reminder that dignity could cut through noise. Biden kept fighting. At a Delaware speech, he called the gala a setup, but the crowd was quiet. His words hollow against Obama's composure. Grassroots groups sprang up. Dignity Matters rallies in college towns, using Obama's words as a call to action. The clash wasn't just a moment. It was a mirror, showing America what it valued, what it missed, what it hoped for. And that reflection grew stronger every day. Weeks later, the Kennedy Center clash hadn't faded. It had hardened into legend in the St. Louis Community Center. Retirees watched the clip again, one saying, "I've seen leaders lose it, but Obama showed us how to stand tall without stooping low." In a Los Angeles classroom, a student asked, "Why does this feel like a movie?" Her teacher replied, "Because real leadership is rare. It's powerful. It stays with you." In Atlanta, a pastor told his congregation, "Decency isn't weakness, it's strength." And we saw it that night. The clip became a parable, quoted in op-eds, taught in civics classes, shared over dinner tables. Obama's silence afterward made it stronger. He didn't need to add more. His words were enough. Biden's team kept pushing, releasing statements, but every attempt fell flat. The footage was too clear, the contrast too stark. In focus groups, voters kept coming back to Obama's calm, Biden's anger. One woman in Ohio said, "I don't care who's president now." Obama was the leader that night. The moment became a shorthand for a choice: shouting versus listening, ego versus empathy. As Americans looked back, they saw not just a clash but a question. What kind of leadership do we want? What kind of country do we build? The answer formed in conversations, in quiet moments where people chose dignity over division. That was the true legacy of that night. A reminder that strength doesn't roar, it stands steady. History doesn't just remember what was said, remembers how it was said. So when future generations replay this clip, they won't see a feud, they'll see a choice between noise and meaning, pride, and principle. Obama's reply will echo not because it embarrassed Biden, but because it reminded America of something it had almost forgotten. Leadership is character in motion. If you believe in that lesson, join the conversation. Subscribe for more stories that show what leadership, dignity, and character look like when it matters most.
Thank you for watching our channel Modern Stories. If you liked our video, you should subscribe for more amazing videos like this. Have a healthy and happy day. See you in the next one.